Well, you expressed that poem about nearly 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
On the retreat that we ran that you were part of, and down in Torquay, and I felt just in that moment of just listening, breathing, sort of connecting to this space, that this like hot flush just run up my body as soon as you started the poem.
Yeah, right.
So it took me back to the moment in that studio with it's probably 20 odd people that read the retreat.
That was powerful then. I've never had a response to reading anything out like that, because it was very much of that moment, wasn't it?
I actually got a bit emotional through that.
Yeah.
As you started reading it. I feel that sort of hot sweat sort of come up and out of my eyes a bit. But because I just clearly remember that day. I think when we truly express, we meet ourselves. Maybe for the first time.
Yeah.
And that touched the whole group because of you wrote that poem.
Yeah, it was my way of synthesizing everything that we were doing, all these disparate things. And at the time, that's how I used to find out what I know, is just by writing. So yeah, it was how I
Because I remember you would come to sessions with me and I'd see you'd write down your notes or these little bits and pieces of words or expressions that you'd sort of felt from our sessions together one-on-one. And then you came to this retreat and we all had a performance to do on that retreat, I remember. And your way was reading out this poem, and the way you read it was just embodiment of what we were doing, and that was, I felt was so powerful.
Yeah, really, as I said, the reception I received was so powerful, but it felt powerful within me because when I was reading it, I really felt it and I really meant it. Not that I didn't this time either, but in that moment in 2020 was, and it was just my way of figuring out everything that you were trying to talk about and embody.
How was 2020? Was a big year, obviously, with COVID as well. And this idea of falling, your idea of falling, what we'd done through our work. Here I am, a past athlete, former athlete, who's gone and dived into many aspects of practice and movement. And here you're a photographer, performing artist, and we came together. And actually, can you take us back to how we came together? Because that was...
Yeah, it was just in the band that I was playing in, the drummer in the band was working with one of your colleagues and trying to figure out how to take these deep movement philosophies and approach them to a performing arts setting. And he wanted you to see us perform, not to criticize our music, which probably deserved to be criticized, but to see how we were performing, how we were holding ourselves, how we were letting the energy come through and out of us. And so that's how we first met. Me, who can't sing, being the singer in the band, and I had so much energy and so much almost nervous energy that, as you told me, I was up. I was chest forward, it was all coming out, I was almost on a perpendicular lean. But there was something that I was doing that was interesting you a bit. But yeah, from there then...
There's something beautiful about that, everything. Yeah. The way you were.
And it's the only time, because I don't have the confidence of singing, but I loved performing because I felt like something completely different. And it was that nervous energy and I loved it and I gave it my all, which was always why I was well received when I did, because it was just almost manic energy, just whipping the crowd up or whipping ourselves up. And it was great, but kind of like reading the poem at the retreat, it was like being a completely out-of-body experience. But yeah, there was clearly something in what I was doing that interested you a bit. And then the sessions that we came together with weren't anything to do with, here's how to hold the microphone. It was Tai Chi. It was improv dance. It was, let's try and just move on the floor and try and get up without using too much effort. All things that you'd think would be at the periphery of performing arts or just creativity, but they're so integral and they really sit at the seat of all of that. So yeah, we got along like great guns just doing that, because somehow we clicked perfectly and realized that that's exactly what we needed to do. And it was my favorite thing about you is trying to explain to people what you do. I was like, I've got a session with Troy, and they say, well, what do you do? And I was like, well, everything from, you know, doing Aikido on the Princess Pier to just learning how to just literally drop and fall to sprinting and it sounds so disparate and it sounds like you're just taking from here, taking from there, but it all, I know for you and for me, it makes perfect cohesive sense. Because even if you're learning how to sprint well, that's just the same as doing Tai Chi or doing breath work or doing improv dance where you let yourself just be a lot. Because I've always liked how you approach sprinting in particular, because you've got to be so precise on technique.
Right.
But then when you do it, you need to forget technique and just be in it. Because otherwise you'll be thinking about sprinting and you won't be sprinting. So yeah, I still don't know how to tell people what you do, but it's usually a few long sentences.
You said to me over dinner a while back when we caught up, we haven't moved together for a while due to you're about to move overseas, over to London to work, and this is a nice time to get together and have a chat. But you said to me, you gave me permission to be myself or be and express and be on the Princess Pier in front of people.
Yeah.
Walking past going, what are these two guys doing?
Imagine doing that by yourself. Imagine doing all the bagua by yourself in the middle of Princess Pier. That's what I mean. I couldn't have done that. But I was like, oh no, Troy's here, and all of a sudden two's a crowd and you don't feel like a crazy person. But there's that permission to be that and go deep into that. Because if I was by myself, I'd kind of have one thought of, what are people thinking about me while I do this? And to let that just go completely out the window is beautiful. And then it allowed us both to go deeper. And I know you probably felt the same as well.
Well, I was about to say, it worked. It's like give and take, push, pull. You were giving me permission to actually take this somewhere for me to create, I was just as learning as much as you.
It felt like that.
All movement is a way of communicating, whether it's at the top level of high-end sport or more of a contact improv, somatic type work. It's often our bodies are talking before our mind cannot even understand what's actually happening.
And that's where you feel that resistance when we were doing that work. And do you remember you're always egging me on to get closer if we were doing like play fighting or something like that. Just my being myself, I was always ready to make contact, but be away, and you were always like, no, don't actually get close. It was a really interesting thing to, in that conversation of movement, know or find out where your natural resistance feels and then challenge that and have permission between two people to really challenge that. Because it's not every day you see two men in their jocks getting really close, and you know you're a lot bigger than me, and that's something that we figured out as well, that there's that, well, you're big, I'm a bit smaller, but still wanting to be close, and you hanging off me or anything like that and not resisting that sort of weight that's on me, and you knowledge of your bigger presence and not being afraid of that either, and just leaning into that. So
that was definitely, I think, being the bigger of the two, also having someone take my weight or make me feel safe. It's usually the
other way around.
Other way around in society. The big guy look after the smaller guys, or whether it's in a football club or so that dance and it was clunky. That's the beautiful thing, was it was clunky. Because live expression is. That's why I've always loved.
But then those moments of just when it just flowed together beautifully, and you could feel that, and you really, you could feel yourself just going, or both of us just perfectly in tune. As you said before you've had a chance to be conscious of that, you're just in it, which is, it's almost made the clunkiness better.
It does. It's actually real live expression, and you actually shouldn't worry about them, what anyone thinks, because that's what it is at the time. And I think we probably get too much in our own mind or heads that are around how we look, or
but also striving for that perfection of that, all right, we're going to move together. Like later when we move here, we both want it to look really good and be like perfect, and like it'll great. Oh, we've got cameras on us, so it'll be great if we do that movement. But as soon as you do that, your mind's getting in front of your body, and you're like, it'll look really good if I, roll over Troy. But then you've got your own ideas, and you meet at loggerheads like that instead of listening.
Yeah, that's a good point. That force on force, and
and you can feel that, can't you?
My background in, I suppose, martial arts opened the window for us to move, having done it since I was a very young boy, and that's why we practice Tai Chi or Aikido or together. But having that deep listening, and I think as you get, certainly for my case, as I've got older, to go from training to just sort of fighting and learning how to defend yourself and how good's this look and how good's this feel, to a much more internal awareness of who you're becoming, and that deep listening to, I think, one another in a space together, moving around one another and not forcing against that. I suppose yielding,
going with it.
And those ideas, what I loved about you is we'd play with those ideas out in the park or in a studio, but then we'd talk about it in a bigger sense, in a, I suppose, a metaphor for life type
very much
way.
So.
And I always loved and I know you studied philosophy at university, and I loved the way you brought your angle into the conversation.
Yeah, and likewise, I love that you're bringing the Tai Chi angle or the Aikido or Bagua angle, because it was no different from a kind of more pure philosophy. It was more an embodiment of that philosophy and the movement of that philosophy, because the reason I got a bit fed up with philosophy is the limit of the written word. Western philosophy ignores your body so much. It's all about your mind and ruminating, sitting in a chair and thinking deep thoughts. But something like Tai Chi is expressing a very deep universal philosophy of energetic push and pull and give and take and that constant movement. But sometimes you don't need to say that. Sometimes it can just be a movement where you're dragging around or you're brushing the bird's feather, and it's just this beautiful movement like that. And so that's why I love working with you so much, is because of, I don't need to sit and write an essay about this. You can just do it, because that's the most important thing, is just being and doing it. So, but it was nice to have those two different perspectives come and meet under a fig tree in Faulkner Park.
You go back to that conversation around two men moving together, and we've even seen, I come from the AFL and the sport of everything's about not falling.
Yeah.
If we go back to your poem.
Yep.
It's about bracing. It's about, how do I take a tackle? How do I force on force? But there's also this another layer in those types of sports of, if you can tap into it. And I think we've seen some players, start to understand how to yield, how to be more efficient, how to move someone without actually having to do much at all. All those ideas.
Right.
But that takes you to fall within yourself.
That yield that you're talking about, yeah.
Like a deeper, it's not like about falling in the ground, because I remember a famous psychologist, child psychologist, Donald Winnicott, said, we're born with a primal fear of falling. So maybe we're already falling from the moment we're born. And this idea of falling.
Yeah.
And I sort of like that, because
and the resistance,
gravity is what's holding us up, and so we're resisting to gravity. And when we resist, that's when hesitation comes in, when we tension comes in, is that hesitation, or we don't find that flow. So I feel what these practices allow us to do is really give us that deeper sense of awareness of even how we're communicating.
Yeah.
Not only on the field, but as a team, how the team's moving.
Cohesive unit.
Cohesive unit.
Yeah.
And you saw even on the retreat, some footballers, when they surrender, something beautiful happens. And
It's amazingly beautiful.
you know, and we've got to I've witnessed that over many years, but that idea, that's why the poem at the start, you reading falling.
And falling into the falling as well.
Yeah. Can you explain from your,
I guess coming from my philosophical background, also imagine us sometimes as just falling, hurtling through the abyss of the universe or multiverse. And it feels a very natural and human thing to do, to want to reach out and grab something or sit down on something solid, have that kind of point that you can locate yourself. But for me, I always found that to be a misnomer. It's not actually there. But it's such a human, we always at every point want to just latch onto something or grab it. And you can see it when people do it, that it almost slips through your fingers, but that grabbing, you're tense there and you're not actually falling with it. So to use a kind
it's
of...
quite a primal reaction, isn't it?
Yeah. And you've got to constantly remind yourself to not grip, or even, you know, then you start gripping at this idea of not gripping. And it's that circular thing where you actually got to resist and let yourself go to even wanting to figure out how it all works, and just instead of just going with it. It's like that Taoist metaphor of, you know, the river, and just wanting to flow like the water through the river, and that's being shaped by the riverbeds, but also the water just by flowing changes the course of the riverbed over time. It's that yin and yang, and goes back to that Tai Chi idea of the give and take of energy. But yeah, this poem, while it was about the retreat and about the work that we were doing, it was also a synthesis of those ideas of, wait a minute, we're just hurtling through nothingness right now, and that's scary. And it's also so insignificant, so largely insignificant, that it's beautifully significant in this little moment that just so happens that we get to be here right now for some unbeknownst reason. But yeah, that part of the poem at the end where it's just about silence and nothing is just about all those thought systems we create, whether that's philosophy, whether that's coaching ideas in football, but we try and name things and put labels on things, and we try and put a fixed grid on something. That it's a dynamic world that's always changing, and it's such a folly of a human idea to try and put a fixed grid on something that just can't be fixed. And so just falling into the falling, and falling without needing to know or needing to need, is just that real, and we don't do it enough, but when we do have those moments of it, it feels like that pure being, and that's breathing.
Yeah.
And
as an observer, you see that, whether it's watching a game or, you know.
I see it in people in relationships as well, like everything that people do, but you can definitely see it in sports, can't you? When someone's maybe not in good form and they're trying to rediscover their form, and they're gripping at it tighter and tighter, and at a point you just actually let go and yield. And
yeah, the ability to surrender and not tense up on that shot at goal. Easy to say that, you know.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have a
clue.
That's
why the practice of it is, you know, always believed, people who've inspired me, people who have practiced something at a very high level.
Yes, for a long time.
Because it's authentic, they wear it, you feel it. You feel it in just the body language, you know.
Yeah, or the presence when they step into the room with it.
And what I loved about when we were moving was we were tapping into each other's signatures.
Yeah.
And the signatures were our history, our traumas, and the conversations that would come out of an improv session together around a bit more depth of your life or mine. That intimacy is what I feel, and that surrender to give into the fall.
Yeah, but it's a good point about intimacy, isn't it?
It brings, if you look at masculinity and two sides of it. It brings this lovely meeting point for two people or a team, together, a real connection. Actually, whereas some people think, I look at what I'm doing, I'm scared, how's it look? Yeah. And actually pushes things away.
Yeah, very much so. But what I really like is when you talk about masculinity, it's with the yin to the yang, which is the being in touch with your femininity, and you're being intimate, not just trying to be a big bloke. It's about, well, you're actually going to be more in touch with your masculinity if you're really intimate with yourself or intimate with others and allow space between two men. Or it's not this normal bravado idea of masculinity. It's actually having a conversation through movement, which requires listening. It's having a conversation through an actual voice conversation, which again requires listening and being patient and holding that space, which is...
Yeah, even listening to what someone's saying, really listening, taking it in before. I think we all catch ourselves trying to think, what do I want to say next? To move the conversation where I want to go. That can be the clunkiness, or it's probably even happening in this conversation.
Absolutely, yeah.
To find
those
that
moments where you do flow and it just exists as it's meant to be.
I see that a lot with, work with young athletes or boys, and that softness come out, and then there's a time for I love roughhousing with boys, and that was quite primal. We did that growing up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still probably not enough of it today. Is that just unsupervised play where you just...
Yeah, which is what we're doing in a more structured way, is like getting back to that. Yeah, because you're learning so much then, because you're feeling somebody else's body and somebody else's presence as you're moving around it. Even if you're just roughhousing, it's still just as genuine as trying to do some beautiful movement piece where we're all connected the whole time.
And that can be seen as just like, that's rough and tumble, but there's something beautiful about it too.
I want to ask you about your work, because since we've met, your work has evolved quite a bit. I guess I wanted to tell the story about my mum when I first showed her what you do, because she was asking, well, like, what are you doing with him? What does he do? And we went on your then website, and there was a video of you moving just in a dance studio. And Mum was so taken with it, because she felt, it was like, wow, he really knows how to move. And there was something that was coming out of you that was very pure, that she picked up on, even through a video camera, through a computer screen. She was really interested and taken with it. And it's what you talk about with these people who've put in the work and put in the hours. And, you've talked about it before with athletes. There's an effortlessness to it that's really present, and you have put in the work. You've never done dance school, but putting in the work with your martial arts, with your coordination movement, with everything, just allowed you in that moment to do an improv dance that made some stranger go, oh wow, there's something there that's really archetypal and really primal and just very human and engaging because of that.
When you come from a pureness, there's the expression looks after itself, and
and that's picked up on. We all can feel that and pick up on that.
If you keep practicing, and that's what I suppose I like to help teach, is that ability to practice something, you will continually evolve. And in the evolving nature of ourselves, you got to adapt, you got to change, you got to...
Absolutely, and to the situation as well.
So I suppose having, whether it's young boys in the start of their lives, to athletes, looking to play sport, or executives in high level, whether it's in the corporate world or whatever, ability to understand ourself and have a sense of self and the way we hold ourselves. the way we express out into the world isn't just about movement, dance, or sprinting, or it's those practices can help
to fall.
Yeah. Yeah, we hit up against things, we resist things all the time, in all parts of our lives. So what a beautiful platform to actually work out of and discuss, and whether it's an athlete looking for that 1-2% more, into it, you know, do we just go out and do the same type of training that everyone else has done,
lifting the same weights,
the same way? Like, I get that, and that's part of what you do, but I was always, I think, quite curious into, like, there's a limitation to everything. There's a limitation to martial arts. There's a limitation to all sorts of practices. But when we understand that, and you can sort of dance between it all, that dance is what...
Yeah, I think what you're trying to hit on is almost the idea of beauty. Because the lifting weights, or just if you're the executive doing, like, being disciplined in your field, it can become a bit too analytic, and trying to touch beauty or hold beauty is being present, is being embodied. And so that athlete is trying to play a beautiful game. And you do that by just surrendering yourself and just going with the flow and trusting your technique that you spent hours and hours and hours on, that have your foundation. But it's that beauty is what I think that you're really talking about. And you're talking about it with, from young men to professional athletes to executives. It's that holding that space of beauty and getting to touch those moments of present, which is beautiful when you see it.